Welcome, friends gathered in the sanctuary, on Zoom, and later on our YouTube channel. It is so good to be together. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Franklin, to the Smoky Mountains of Western North Carolina and Northeast Georgia, and the ancestral land of the Cherokee people. We're a lay-led congregation of progressive minds and caring connections. My name is Mary Teslow, and I'm delighted to be your service leader this morning. We extend a warm welcome to those who may be visiting with us today for the first time or returning after a while. We're so glad you're with us and look forward to getting to know you better. There'll be an opportunity to introduce yourself later in the service, and you can sign up for our newsletter in the foyer. As we gather each Sunday, we take a moment to greet each other on Zoom and here in the sanctuary, affectionately the Zoomies and the Roomies. Roomies, please rise, embody your spirit for our wave hello, and stay standing for our gathering hymn, Spirit of Life. Miss Jude. So our wave hello, and they're waving back to us, yay. Wonderful.
And before they start the music, if I just take half a second for the visitors, we are learning this in sign language, and we're doing awesome at it. And following that, we have phonetically the Spanish we're going to attempt again. But, sorry, thank you. Here we go.
I think they might do Spanish first.
Oh, maybe. If they do, I'll grab the poster. I forget from week to week. Oh, I think you're right. We'll see.
Different, a slightly different sign language, so fun to follow that as well.
We have Western North Carolina.
There we go, absolutely. This simple act of connection reminds us that despite our distance, we are all part of this loving community. We appreciate our Sunday service team, Warren, Becky, Ben, Edgar, Penny on Zoom, and Claire for our YouTube channel. Our greeters this morning were Bill and Sarah. Yay, thank you. And Karen for hospitality. We appreciate all our volunteers. Fellowship announcements. Do we have any announcements on Zoom? Looks like we're good. Are there any announcements here in the sanctuary? Hello.
Hi, I'm Robbie. So 10 of us ordered the Side with Love t-shirts, and they have arrived. And I wasn't sure whether to announce it during announcements or announce it during, so someone suggested twice. So I will be passing out your t-shirts today, and hopefully, the plan is we will wear them next week for the Side with Love worship service.
Yay, hooray. Wonderful, thank you.
Hi. UU Women's Spirit, registration is open, going to the mountain October 1st through the 5th. If you have any questions about Women's Spirit, come and see me. It's awesome.
Yay, thank you, Callie. Hi, Caleb.
Hi everybody. Connect Up is a space where words are our currency and connection value. And I have really enjoyed talking to everyone who's come out. You could come log in through the blue button, the join meeting button on your UView e-letter, and just come with whatever you have on your shoulders, or just to chit chat and say hello. You can come for 2 minutes, you can come for the full 30 minutes. All are welcome, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, noon on Wednesday. Thank you.
Hi, Paul.
The Franklin Farmers Tailgate Market is every Saturday from 8 to 12. It's right off Palmer Street, and I'm usually there. I have leftovers today downstairs if you want to partake. Thank you.
I'm Jude Lowry, your serving president. Just a reminder, today at 1 o'clock is board meeting. So if it's always open for people to come and observe. We are very transparent like that. But if you have any concerns or things that we haven't noticed or you think we haven't noticed, just let me or one of the board members know so that we can attend to that.
Thank you. It's also hybrid, isn't it, Jude? If folks are
hybrid,
It's
yes.
hybrid. Hi, Bonnie.
Hello. So good to see everybody here. Last week I failed to mention the yard sale, the August yard sale month. And this is a modest thing for anyone that wants to bring something that they want to just recycle to the world. We can possibly benefit from it here. And then hopefully it'll raise a few pennies that'll go towards either programming for youth or to funding committees that we're hoping to form soon. They'll have their own little budget then. So that's what that's for. There's one table that's marked for free, and the other tables are pay as you will, and there's a little wicker basket for you to put a few dollars in. Thank you.
Thank you. We're all set. Wonderful. We encourage folks to keep us all healthy by using the supplies in the foyer or joining us on Zoom if you're not feeling well. A reminder that we request anyone testing positive or significantly exposed to contact our president, Jude Lowry. Please be sure to keep up to date by checking the UU View, our website, and the bulletin board downstairs in Celebration Hall. Our fellowship is a light for liberal religion in the mountains that values diversity and the richness that it brings to our community. Our celebration of diversity is reflected in the variety of our Sunday services. In addition to different topics, our service sequence and length sometimes varies. We hope today's service enriches your journey of discovery. Today, we welcome back Reverend Claudia Jiménez and Steve Lapointe at the piano. Reverend Claudia has served as the UU Congregation of Asheville's Minister of Faith Development since 2018. Prior to her ordination, Reverend Jiménez served as Director of Religious Education at the UU Fellowship of Vero Beach, Florida, from 2001 to 2018. She has 10 years of teaching experience in middle school science and in elementary schools in Colombia, Brazil, Canada, and Florida. While in Vero Beach, she was elected to 2 terms as the Indian River County School Board from 2008 to 2016. She's a certified religious educator through the Liberal Religious Educators Association and is a trained Our Whole Lives, or OWL, facilitator and a certified sexuality educator. She is married and has 2 adult daughters. Steve Lapointe's 9 years of classical piano as a youth grounded him in music theory. Jazz studies, while in Ithaca, New York, opened his ears to extemporaneous improvisation and the music of Keith Jarrett, Chick Corea, and others. Steve served as musical director at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Vero Beach, Florida, and occasionally performs at the UU Asheville congregation. Steve also has an interest in teaching and researching sexuality. He earned a PhD in entomology, plant pathology, and botany from Cornell University. His worldwide research has been on insect-plant interactions with a particular interest in optimizing pheromone blends for mating disruption. And now, so we've got it covered now. And now, Reverend Claudia with our chalice lighting.
I think maybe he should give the sermon, don't you? Buenos dias. Good morning. It is so wonderful to be back with you today, and in honor of your singing Spirit of Life bilingually, which I love hearing Spanish in our congregations, I will offer a bilingual chalice lighting, and it is from our hymnal number 453 from the Jewish Passover Haggadah. Que esta luz que ahora encendemos nos inspire a usar nuestros dones y poderes para sanar y no herir, para ayudar y no impedir, para bendecir y no maldecir, para servirte a ti, Espíritu de amor, con compasión y perdón. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Welcome to this morning's worship, and now let us prepare with our centering music.
Thank you, Steve. And now join me in welcoming Reverend Claudia with her wisdom story, followed by her sermon, Living in Immoral Times.
Okay, so before I begin, I just wanted to share with you that piece that Steve played, Dreams of Dapa, is a piece that's inspired by a beautiful cloud forest in Colombia where we lived and where our children were born. And so it was an original piece, and I'm just like super grateful that it was offered today, so thank you. And so I am going to share a story with you. Wisdom stories are stories not just for children, but stories for all of us. And so I have a story to share that I will be referring to in my sermon. And between the story and the sermon, Steve is just going to offer a little bit of music for reflection so you can sit with the story before I begin the sermon. So our story this morning is called Sometimes People March, and it is written by Tessa Allen. Sometimes ants march. Sometimes bands march. Sometimes people march. Marching is something people do together when they want to resist injustice or when they notice a need for change. And this picture on the left, the protest parade, occurred in 1909 when the NAACP had a silent protest against the Jim Crow laws in New York City. So as you can see, people march for many reasons. They march for things they care about and the people they love. People march for the health of their bodies, their communities, and the world. People march for the freedom to love and live and learn. Sometimes people carry signs to share their stories of resistance. And I'm going to invite you into a pause to see how many of those signs you recognize from people speaking up for where they are seeing injustice. And I've added to this collection a sign that I saw actually on Facebook. And it is a sign that is not represented here necessarily. So let's move on to we march as a family because someone marched so we could be a family. And so that is really important. Now, people resist in many ways. Sometimes people resist with their voices, with words, with songs, and with art. And I'm going to invite you to look at the picture of the man with the guitar on the boat. Does anybody know who that is? That is Pete Seeger in the 1960s. And he, as you know, was a musician and activist, and he and his friends sailed on the Hudson River in New York, singing about the beauty of nature and our need to protect it. And they were part of the voices that worked toward cleaning up the very polluted Hudson River. People also resist with meetings. And our next slide shows from the 1960s a photo or a drawing of what was imagined to be the Filipino and Mexican farm workers uniting to fight for safe and fair work conditions during the Delano grape boycott. People also resist by standing up, sitting down, or taking a knee. In the upper left-hand corner, you see a representation of the 1899 Newsies strike, which was working kids protesting unfair labor practices by New York's biggest newspapers. And their protest inspired other people, including adults, to speak up for their rights. And now, if you can imagine, protesting isn't always easy. Feet get tired, arms get tired, hearts and hopes get tired. And sometimes problems seem way too big or complex. But in fact, we do not march alone. Bands are stronger together. People are more powerful together. And sometimes, from feelings of fear or anger or injustice, comes the hope for change. Sometimes change starts small with a brave question. Maybe your question is a question that calls people together. And together, we find the courage to march. And so I've added to that drawing from the book a shot from the Art Museum in Asheville from the No King's Day March on June 14, when all around our country, 5 million people marched for democracy. And they marched for caring for each other and not being cruel to each other. So that is our story for this morning with a few little additions. So as I prepared for my sabbatical adventures a few months ago, I centered one of my adventures, walking the Camino Portugués from Porto to Santiago de Compostela, on the invitation by Francis Sansarro in Zen of the Wild to focus not so much on what one can get out of the walk, but what a walk can get out of us. In the end, that became the focus of my sabbatical. Not what I can get from the sabbatical. I tried not to arrive at the walk with a to-do list of things to accomplish, but what the walk might get out of me. What a daily walk. The practice of letting go, being open to emerging thoughts and emotions, open to serendipity, open to what resonances might emerge in the new landscapes. And during that sabbatical, many things emerged from my experiences. My overarching theme for journaling and reflection became disconnect and reset. Of course, it was difficult to completely disconnect from the news during my Camino walk. Our European traveling companions often brought it up. TVs in small cafes and restaurants were unavoidable. Instead of trying to tune it out, I listened, felt the feelings, and affirmed to myself that I was taking a break from engagement to recharge my spirit for the work ahead when I returned. Later on, during a camping trip out west, I was truly able to disconnect and immerse myself in nature and appreciate the beauty and expansiveness of this country and its diverse ecosystems, and to enjoy new friends made, however briefly. And an unexpected surprise, to learn about the indigenous peoples of the Southwest. And I'll be sharing a little bit more about that later. But really, one does not need to go far away to disconnect and recharge. Taking a 15-minute break, an hour, a half day when possible from one's routines can be refreshing. Being mindful of how much time is spent consuming news can also be helpful in these times. It is important to be informed and to create space for things that are uplifting and joyful, because it is a both and. There is cruelty and there is kindness. There is horror and there is beauty, and they coexist side by side. And creating space for joy, for rest, for what one of my friends called glimmers, allows us to be more present, resilient, and intentional as we engage with one another in the many circles that we are a part of. And I brought a little postcard in a cafe in Taos with a quote from Rebecca Solnit that reinforced it. The card said, "When you face a politics that aspires to make you fearful, alienated, and isolated, joy is a fine act of insurrection." So I invite you to consider how you are each making space for joy in these times. Now, a reset that occurred during the Camino was really a mindset shift from "I can't do this" to "I can do hard things." The first few days of walking were hard, and the thought of reaching Santiago was daunting. However, I persevered, I took breaks as needed, leaving my ego aside, and I finally got into a comfortable walking rhythm. "I can do hard things" became my mantra during some of the long hikes after completing the Camino. And after coming back to the US, when once again I was immersed in the realities of the immoral actions of our elected leaders, spreading misinformation, silencing critics, attacking the rights of our trans beloveds, scapegoating immigrants and other communities, and actions that just simply violate the dignity and ability of all Americans to thrive. I felt so overwhelmed. However, I remembered my Camino mantra, "I can do hard things." And as I thought about it, I realized that it's not only that can do hard things, but it is we can do hard things. And as we saw and heard in our story this morning, our history is shaped by citizen engagement. There were many protests that have contributed to more justice. And yes, there are also losses, but activists and justice seekers persist. Gloria Brown Marshall, legal scholar and civil rights activist, who presented during our 2025 General Assembly in June, emphasized the importance of protests and invites us to consider protests beyond marches and rallies. She reminds us that resistance also occurs through participating in courageous conversations across difference, in legal battles, in social media advocacy, and community organizing. The Unitarian Universalist Association Common Read for Congregations this year is Deepa Iyer's Social Change Now, a guide for reflection and connection. It offers a social change ecosystem framework, and that framework is shown here on this slide. And it's a framework for discerning justice engagement to diffuse the sense of dread many of us are feeling. It includes reflection questions, tips, and ideas for discerning one's role as an individual and as a community when engaging in justice work. It invites us to remember that we cannot do this work alone, but we are part of a social change ecosystem. And if you look at that diagram, the names of all of those different parts of that ecosystem are pretty intuitive. We can be weavers, we can be visionaries, we can be caregivers, storytellers, healers. Ayers maps an ecosystem with all of these roles interconnected and grounded in the center. And you see, it says in the center, fill your values here. And so I bought my jet pig with me, which is a little smaller than your jet pig, but it still serves the purpose of reminding us what are those values that ground us: justice, equity, transformation, pluralism, interdependence, generosity. Those are the things that are centered in that ecosystem and that remind us that we find our roles together. And no matter how long you've been doing justice work or if you're just getting started, it is really worthwhile to take a moment and reflect on what we've been doing, what our roles have been, what our gifts and interests are, and decide, do we need to continue doing the same thing, or do we need to shift? And who are the people that I connect with as I do this work? And when we think about who are the people, it's not just the people in here, it's also the people in our community. Who are our allies? Who are our co-conspirators? And how do we work together? So I invite you to consider, as a congregation or as a group in the congregation, to explore this year's Common Read. And on the UUA website, there are actually curricula for offering a program that is for adults and youth, and or a program that is multi-generational. So that might be something that might appeal to some of you and would be helpful in this time when we are all trying to figure out, what is my role in meeting the moment that our country is facing today? So far, I've shared two considerations of how to live in these immoral times. Discern your role in counteracting the immoral decisions that we are witnessing. And then the second one, to allow space for rest, joy, and delight. My final consideration for you is to study and interrogate the history we have been taught and that which has been ignored. During my sabbatical, my partner Steve and I drove across the country with the goal of camping and exploring the Southwest. I did not realize how much history of Indigenous people we just don't know and we don't teach our children. Many parks we visited, like Chaco Canyon and Mesa Verde, where we saw cliff dwellings, and that's where there are a few pictures, had extensive exhibits and resources about Native culture. And I was moved to learn that Native people do not call the cliff dwellings ruins. I was calling them that the whole time. They call them ancestral dwellings, which they currently visit for ceremonies and connection with the ancestors. I was surprised to read a sign in the museum at Mesa Verde explaining why large sections of the exhibits were covered while they were being reimagined. The museum apologized for presenting the exhibit through a white lens, omitting voices of Native peoples. Wow, some progress is happening. And yes, progress is also being undone. Books are being banned in public libraries and schools. Diversity, equity, and inclusion programs are being discontinued and demonized. And history is literally being whitewashed. We need to engage with real history and find ways to make sure it is not lost to our children and our communities. Knowing history helps us understand what has shaped the reality that we are facing today. Including the history that has been ignored broadens our understanding of communities that have been othered or ignored, revealing their richness, complexities, and ultimately their connection to us. All our histories are intertwined. They are part of U.S. history. As human beings whose ancestors immigrated or were brought here in chains, all people of diverse identities and ethnicities have contributed to our multiracial, pluralistic society. And to erase those stories is deeply troubling and dangerous. And just recently, I came by an essay by theologian Kelly Brown Douglas, who wrote the following: "When a people's truth is made a lie, their very lives are rendered expendable. When their stories do not matter, neither do their lives." We have seen this historically with Black lives, and we see it now in other communities across the globe. To refuse the truth of apartheid is to diminish the humanity of Black South Africans. To deny the truth of the Holocaust is to deny the humanity of Jewish people. To silence the story of the Nakba is to discount the humanity of Palestinian people. To erase these narratives is to make people more vulnerable to racism, anti-Semitism, anti-immigration hatred, Islamophobia, and various other forms of violent dehumanization. And she says the theological imperative is clear. Storytelling is an essential part of the sacred work religious institutions must do. And I wonder what our call is as a people of faith when this banning is happening, to keep in front of us the histories of people, and not just people, of data and information that are being erased right now in our country. And I will just add that I just recently finished reading a book that's called Latino Land, that's written by a Peruvian woman named Maria Arana. And it tells a story of the Latina culture that I wasn't familiar with. It talks of all of the different ways in which, in particular, Mexican people have been invited into this country, used for their work, treated poorly, and then kicked out. And what we're seeing today is another continuation of a history that we haven't been taught, that we don't know. So knowing the history doesn't change what we're witnessing, but it does help us understand what we've been doing as informed citizens. We can push back to some of the lies and mythologies that can be created and promulgated because we don't know the history and we don't know, wait a minute, that is not the truth of those stories. So I invite you to consider what that might look like for you. Where is there history that you might be more curious about that can help you inform today? So as we strive to stay grounded while witnessing many immoral actions and policies and executive orders that diminish our constitutional rights and deny the dignity of many of those who share this country with us, may we find ways to discern our engagement grounded in our UU values while also creating space for rest, joy, and delight. And may we fight back against the whitewashing of history and the misinformation being promoted by some of our elected leaders and social media by studying our history critically and being curious about the histories of communities that have been marginalized. I close with this quote from Deepa Ayers that reminds us why in these immoral times our engagement matters. She writes, "Our belief in the promise of social change through connections with one another is why we keep trying after feeling disappointment, why we keep returning after grieving, why we keep fighting after resting. It's why we keep building after systems fail, why we keep on loving even when we are experiencing heartbreak. It is why we take actions that embody solidarity, resistance, and hope. It is why we infuse our efforts with joy, passion, affirmation, and healing. We intuitively know that something better is blooming, growing, emerging, and we want to be part of that momentum, that stream, that journey. That, beloveds, is what our Unitarian Universalist faith calls us to do. May we meet that moment. Thank you.
What a beautiful gift, your story and your sermon. So wonderful and generous of you. We are grateful to have the companionship of over 1,000 Unitarian Universalist congregations and our shared principles and values as we act with courage and love in these challenging times. We are also grateful for all the diverse gifts of time, talent, and treasure that are given by so many in love and in hope. Please give generously to the life and work of this beloved community. Now please join me in the dedication of our gifts. All gifts given in love and hope continue a cycle of love and hope. Thank you for your support. All financial gifts are appreciated. There's an offering plate at the sanctuary entry where there are also stamped addressed envelopes to mail. Donations are also welcome electronically, including our PayPal link on our website and in the UU View. There's also our celebration jar right here and a basket for coffee donations downstairs in Celebration Hall. As we prepare for joys and concerns, know that they will be edited out before being posted online. For our visitors, it's a joy to welcome visitors this morning. If you'd like to introduce yourself, please raise your hand. We're well known on Zoom, so is there anyone in the sanctuary that wants to introduce themselves? We can wait then till coffee time and visit with you there. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Now we open our hearts to one another. If you carry a joy, a celebration, a piece of good news, let us rejoice with you. If you carry a concern, a grief, a worry, or a pain, let us share the burden. If you'd like, you're welcome to share a brief special joy or concern, and I'll drop a pebble in the water. We'll begin with those on Zoom, and we'll follow with those in the sanctuary. And we invite sanctuary folks to line up here by the piano. So we have anyone on Zoom? A last pebble to remember those who have spoken, those who have been named, and those we hold in silence in our hearts. We now invite you to a minute of silence. You can choose to meditate, pray, reflect on something you've heard here today, or simply sit silently in community with others, and I'll bring you back with the chimes. And now our closing song, Never Neverland, followed by Reverend Claudia's closing words.
Extinguimos esta llama, pero no la luz de la verdad, el calor de comunidad o el fuego de nuestro compromiso. Estos los llevaremos en el corazón hasta que estemos juntos otra vez. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Go in peace, go in love, and know that it is through our collective action and our commitment grounded in love that we can make a difference in our world. Go in peace.
Thank you for joining us today. We know you have many choices of how to spend your Sunday morning, and we're so grateful that you've chosen to spend your time with us in community. Following service, those on Zoom are invited to continue the conversation. Reverend Claudia will stop by the tech table, and those in the sanctuary are invited to social time in Celebration Hall. Next week, we'll celebrate our UUA's Side with Love campaign, public advocacy campaign that aims to combat oppression by harnessing the power of love through the music of UU singer-songwriters. I mean, we're doing through the music. It's part of the larger campaign. Please wear your yellow Side with Love t-shirt if you have one. And here's a preview song, Stand, by Reverend Amy Carroll Webb.
We're going to ask you to stand up and sing the chorus with us as we sing this song. We'll go through the chorus twice, and then we're going to launch into the verses. Keep joining us every chorus. I will stand with you. Will you stand with me? We will be the change that we hope to see in the name of love, in the name of peace. Will you stand? I will stand with you. Will you stand with me? We will be a change that we hope to see in the name of love, in the name of peace. Will you stand with me? When injustice raises up its fist and tries to stop us in our tracks, we will rise. And as one reason, no fear or sorrow can turn us back. I will stand with you. Will you stand with me? We will be the change that we hope to see in the name of love, in the name of peace. Will you stand with me? When breathing hatred, turn up angry noise and fight to drown out our freedom song. We will rise in one joyful voice, loud and clear, and ever strong. I will stand with you. Will you stand with me? We will be a change that we hope to see in the name of love, in the name of peace. Will you stand with me? When broken hearts come knocking on our door, lost and hungry and so alone, we will reach as we have reached before, for there is no stranger in this our home. I will stand with you. Will you stand with me? We will be the change that we hope to see in the name of love, in the name of peace. Will you stand with me? In the name of love, in the name of peace. Will you stand with me?
And since you're all standing, yay, hooray. Those in the sanctuary may choose to hold hands for our covenant. You may want to, there we go. Yay. We got everybody? All right, awesome. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and community is its goal. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. So may it be. Let's wave goodbye to our Zoomies.